Youngpreneurs Podcast, episode number 153, with your host, Victor Ahipini. What's up, world? Another day, another podcast. And today I got Chris Dayley on the show. And Chris is the founder of Disruptive Advertising. And for those of you out there who are looking to start an online business to improve your optimization, and what that means is making sure if people come to your site or come through your funnels or your advertising, that you are getting the maximum optimization to be able to convert those people who are interested into, clients and customers. And that's what Chris and his company does. So they basically test, optimize, and do some pretty cool things. And Chris himself has got a pretty awesome mustache and mohawk, and that makes him even cooler. So if you want to find out how you can connect with him, make sure you jump over to passiveincomeyoung.com/EP153, and he's also got a free ebook if you're looking to improve your optimization. Like, this guy absolutely knows his stuff, so I'd highly recommend getting in there and checking that out. I had an absolute ball interviewing him, and if you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed it, jump over to iTunes, leave a rating and review, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our future awesome episodes.
Keep living life on your own terms.
You're listening to the Youngpreneurs Podcast, the number one resource online for under 35-year-olds, where we chat twice a week to the most inspiring entrepreneurs in the world. We have it all. If you're looking for inspiration, guidance, or actionable tips to help you transition from that job into a business, or if you're ready to take that business to a whole new level, then this is the place to be. Get ready to live life on your own terms. Youngpreneurs, welcome to another episode of the Youngpreneurs Podcast. Super stoked to have you here. You could be anywhere, but you choose to be listening to me. And today, my super awesome guest, who has probably one of the best moustaches I've seen in the last since Movember, Chris Dayley, and he is the VP of Site Optimization and just basically making your websites and your marketing work. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Give us a bit of a background prior to getting involved in all of this. What did growing up look like for you? Was entrepreneurship, or was it always on the cards? Is this the way it was always going to be?
No way. In fact, I never imagined myself as an entrepreneur. I think if you asked, I grew up in Arizona. In fact, I was just down there last week attending one of my good friends from high school's weddings. And we were, us groomsmen were chatting amongst ourselves. There's about 7 of us that were really good friends growing up. And we were kind of looking at where we have all ended up in life. And I think the consensus was that they all assumed that I was the least likely to succeed out of the group of us. And so it's been an interesting journey, to say the least. And it's been, growing up, my dad is the kind of guy that has been extremely successful in his career, but he's the kind of guy that goes and works at a company and stays there for 20 years and kind of works his way up. And he's been very successful doing it that way. And that's kind of how I was raised, in kind of that traditional old school mentality of, you go to school, you graduate and get your degree, get a job, and work your way up. And so that's kind of how I imagined my life turning out when I was young.
And I mean, I guess when you were young, it's pretty funny. I want to go back to that least likely to succeed. It's pretty funny because it kind of happens with a lot of people that I talk to. I think it's more a thing of not accepting the status quo of like, this is how stuff has to be. And it's like, we're always the annoying kid in maths going, why do we need algebra? Like, why do I need this? Or, why are we doing this for the sake of doing it? Like, why are we making a poster when I'm not going to be a poster maker in the future? and like, all those little things that I think kind of build up to people being like, oh, they're not focused, or they're not following the path set out that GPS has put out for you for the next 65 years of your life. So on that point, least likely, Mr. Least Likely to succeed in life. How did you get into optimization and conversions, and what was the journey to get from, I guess, leaving high school to disruptive media? Like,
Sure. So yeah, so I was a terrible student in school that carried over into college as well. So I started attending a local college in Utah, where I ended up moving with my family. And while I was in college, I figured, well, I better get a job to support myself. So I got a sales job at a digital marketing company. I didn't know anything about it. In fact, one of my distant relatives set me up with the interview that I don't think I've seen to this day since I talked to her on that fateful day. But she set me up with this job interview to do sales for a digital marketing agency. I got the job, and as I started selling it, I just really became fascinated with the digital marketing world. I became fascinated with SEO. That's where I kind of got my start in online marketing, was doing search engine optimization.
On the side, or for that company?
So I was selling search engine optimization, so I had to learn certain aspects of it. And the more I learned about it, the more interested I was. I was like, hey, Google, I interface with Google every single day of my life. It's kind of cool that you can manipulate the search rankings. And so I interviewed for the first internal job that came up on the list to do search engine optimization. I got the job, and bam, all of a sudden I'm a marketer. I just thought of myself as kind of like a sales guy, probably just working a normal job. And so now all of a sudden here I am, totally fascinated by this really geeky digital marketing world.
Can I jump in? What were you studying at college?
Business management. Like it was the degree that people get when they don't know what they want to do.
Yeah.
So here I am. I'm doing search engine optimization. I did it for a couple of years, in-house agency. I did it all. And so I was working in-house for a company, and search engine optimization is all about driving traffic to websites, right? So I'm driving all this traffic. Things are looking awesome. I have a meeting one day with the executive team at the company I was at, and I'm touting all these big numbers that I had, created for the company. 300% increases in organic traffic, millions of visitors to all these pages on our site. And somebody stopped me while I was in the middle of my presentation and said, okay, all this sounds great, but what does this mean for the business? So what? I don't care that we got millions of visitors to our site. Where's the revenue?
Yep.
And I had no idea at the time. I was so focused on rankings and traffic and all these things. I just got my tunnel vision on. I didn't know what it was doing for the business. And as I started digging in, I started to realize that my traffic wasn't converting. It wasn't generating revenue for the company I was at. And so, to make a long story short, as kind of a pet project, I ran an A/B test on one of our landing pages to see if, hey, maybe if we tweak a couple things, maybe we can get conversion rates to go up. And lo and behold, we ran a test, conversion rates went up, and I just fell in love again with digital marketing, this time around this idea of influencing people on a website. The psychological aspect is fascinating to me, to find out why people behave the way they do online. And kind of going back to me in school, I actually took a psychology class in school and hated it. And I took a math class, I took a statistics class in school, and I hated it. I ended up dropping out of school, about 3 years into my career, because I was making more than the average college graduate. And I thought, what the hell do I need a degree for? And so anyways, that's kind of the short of how I got into doing what I do now.
That's wicked, man. We're going to go deep on some of that stuff in a second. I just want to give people a bit of a background about people out there who, if some of those words went over your head, because some people are in the working world that they've never come across this. So I guess search engine optimization is basically getting you ranked higher on Google, because the lower down you are, the less likely people are to click on it, I guess. And conversions are turning those clicks into leads or into sales for a business. And what was the other thing? A/B testing is when you chuck up people click on your Google link that they find, and it takes them to either page A or page B, and then you can test. So that'd be about right. Or paid advertising, you can A/B test or anything. But that'd be a general overview, kind of, for everyone
Yeah,
out
that's
there.
excellent. Yeah, and really what it's about is, you mentioned A/B testing. It's really about, most businesses when they design a site, they just create their best guess design and they put it up.
Yep.
A/B testing is about challenging that and saying, instead of launching one homepage, let's run two different designs for our homepage, and let's see which one converts more customers. Let's see which one generates more leads for our business. And when you run two designs at the same time, you can judge them against each other and say version A generated 10 leads, version B generated 100 leads, version B is clearly better.
Yeah.
And so it's really a data-driven approach to designing a site.
What can be measured can be managed,
Exactly.
which I'm sure that's what those guys were calling me out in that meeting about. Got a million things, but what does that even mean to our business? So with that, I guess, what's from an analytics point of view, you're driving people to, say, someone's website, one of your customers' websites. What are the things that you're particularly looking at? I guess this is from a learning perspective for me and everybody else. What are you learning? What are you looking at when people are getting to that page to give you an idea of what you need to potentially optimize?
Yeah, so I break this down into 6 categories. So the 6 biggest things that typically drive or hurt conversion rates on a website. So the 3 things that I call conversion motivators, things that will prompt people to take action on your site. The first is your value proposition. So value proposition is, what are you offering? And are you communicating that in a way that people care about? So if you sell iPhones, why do people care about your iPhones? Do you sell cheaper iPhones? Do you sell, what is it about your iPhones that make them different from buying them straight from Apple? If you're selling a weight loss program, why should people care about your weight loss program? It's building up the value of what you're offering. So value proposition is number 1. Number 2 is your call to action. So what are you telling people to do on the site? And how clearly is it communicated? And I have a little trick for call to action. I call it my 2-second rule. So if you go to your website and I give you 2 seconds to figure out what you're supposed to do, is it obvious in that 2 seconds what you're supposed to do? Are you supposed to click on a button? If you're supposed to click on a button, is it really, really easy to immediately point it out and go, that's the button I'm supposed to click on? Or are there 50 things on the page that are grabbing my attention, right? So call to action is a big one. What are you telling people to do, and how obvious is it? The third thing is your content on your site. So what are you saying to people, and are you saying it in a concise and clear way? Should you have a ton of content on your site, or do people just need a little bit? People may only need a sentence, they may need a whole page. So we help companies test how much content they should have. So those are the 3 things I call conversion motivators, the things you can use to motivate people to take action. Then there's 3 things that I call conversion resistance, things that will typically lead to people not buying from you or converting. The first is distractions or diversions. Anything that's pulling your attention away from that call to action, or that could potentially be pulling your attention away. So distracting things on a website, this could be images, sliding, rotating banners, other offers. If you sell a lot of products, you might just have too many products on your site. And so you could be distracting people from a certain product with other products. There's lots of things that could be distracting. So we help companies identify what distractions are and what they're not. The next thing is anxiety. Anything that will cause people to feel anxiety. If they can't read your content, if they can't tell what they're supposed to do, if they click on something and nothing happens, that usually causes anxiety. If you ask for personal information before they feel like they can trust your brand, that causes anxiety. So you don't want people to feel anxiety on your website. And then the last thing is, and this is something that can be used for good or evil, and that's responsiveness on a site. So just having a site that works on mobile isn't good enough in today's world. If you just take your desktop site and you cram it down onto a mobile screen, that's not good enough. People want a customized mobile experience. Your mobile audience may want a click to call button so that they can call you instead of filling out a form. Your mobile audience may not want any content at all. They may just want images. They may want, a completely different experience from your desktop site. And so those are the 6 things that we look at and the 6 things that we test with our clients to help them figure out what somebody wants when they come to your site.
And I mean, I think hopefully this is a massive, and I have no doubt it will be a massive eye-opener to a lot of people, because a lot of people, like I gave a talk to a friend's business the other day, and I was saying that they've got like a mid-2000s website that looks horrible, but I'm like, man, at the moment, like if you're just going to get a web designer to create your new website with nothing of that, like, they've got no opt-in, they've got no kind of social proof, they're not telling people why, what problem that they solve for people, they're telling them what they do for a profession, all of those things. It's like, you may as well just keep your other website and save the money in your
Right.
wallet, because people aren't coming to your website and getting an experience, that they're leaving. And it was kind of like this big, but we're changing our website, like that's what we're doing. And and then the other thing was, I mean, they're a rural valuation company, so farms and orchards and vineyards and things like that. And I said to them, they said, "Oh, what should we do for social media?" It's like, nothing. Your target market's busy working. They're not
Right.
strolling through there. I was like, pay to play, pay to put it in front of them, and save yourself making tons of content, and drive them to that website that you've hopefully got optimized now to have an opt-in. Otherwise, again, don't bother with either, because you're just going to waste time and waste money, which is it's summed up nowhere near in depth about like what you were talking about, but it's the super powerful things like, are you doing something because you saw some checklist that said part of being a business is you need a website and
Yep, exactly.
and you need a phone number and you need a business card, and the starter business 101 starter pack that too many people jump into. And I'd love your thoughts on it. Like, a lot of people out there probably going, oh, okay, what, all that sounds complex, but why do I need it? I think one of the things is like, and you'd probably know the stats better than me, but how long is the average website visit for around the internet? But then I guess for a poor website, what's the bounce rates? And for, ideally a good website, what's the time that people would stay on a website?
Yeah, so it's different from industry to industry. I've got all kinds of great data that I could dive into, but to spare your listeners a bunch of numbers, typically, and again, it's going to be a big range here, but typically on e-commerce websites, if you're selling a product, I mean, people are going to be spending anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes on a site. So you've got like 2 to 5 minutes where they're going to be browsing around, checking out, figuring out if they want your product. Before that, though, before they spend that time on your site, they typically give, and I think the industry statistic right now is people typically give a website 3 to 5 seconds to figure out if it's a site they want to stay on. Yeah. So that's why I have my 2-second rule, because you don't want it to take 5 seconds for someone to figure out what to do on your page. You want it to take 2 seconds so they can spend the other 3 seconds they're giving you, convincing themselves to actually do it. And then in terms of bounce rates, so you I think mentioned bounce rates. Bounce rates basically means what percentage of people are staying on your site, right? If somebody comes to your site, are they clicking through? Are they engaging with your site? Or are they coming to your site and then immediately leaving, going back to the Google search results? So you don't want people to bounce from your site. That's not a good thing. If people are coming to your site and immediately leaving, that means something's wrong. I just started working with a client recently. They had about a 90% bounce rate on one of the pages of their site. I think it was their home page. So that means that 90% of the people that were coming to their site were immediately leaving.
Yep.
So that's no good. And so we started running a test on their site. We usually, when there's a really high bounce rate, that tells people they're not seeing value when they get there. They're not understanding. They're not being communicated to in an effective way. So we tested a new version. We just completely redesigned their page. We simplified it. We made it very straightforward to the point. We made it relevant to what the users were looking for. And they went from about a 90% bounce rate down to about a 60% bounce rate. So still not a fantastic bounce rate, but that means that 30% more people are staying on the site and clicking through and giving them a chance. So yeah, that's a big deal to look at. Are people leaving your site? Are people spending time on your site? One good thing to look at is if you've got a ton of content on your homepage and the average time on your homepage is 30 seconds, mm-hmm. That's a good indication that people are not reading that content. And so you probably don't need it on there.
Yeah, well, so what would you suggest, not necessarily what do you use, but would you suggest to people out there looking to understand their analytics, apply those 6 rules, but actually be able to see the figures behind it? Is it a matter of installing Google Analytics, or what would your tools be to get people aware of how bad they probably are?
Well, and there's two types of businesses out there. There's businesses with problems on their site, and there's businesses with opportunities on their site. Both businesses have opportunities, but businesses with problems will usually see a lot of those problems with Google Analytics. So Google Analytics, every company needs to have an analytics tool, no matter what. If you have a website, you need to have analytics on it. So Google Analytics, again, is going to expose things like if you have a high bounce rate on your pages, if you have a low time on site, if you have like a checkout process, where are people bailing out of that process? So it can help you identify problems, but a lot of times it doesn't highlight a lot of opportunities. And so to highlight opportunities, I typically use heat mapping tools. So heat mapping tools there's a free tool called Hotjar that businesses can use. And this will basically tell you 2 things. It'll tell you what are people clicking on your page. So exactly where are people clicking? And then it will tell you how far down pages people are scrolling. So again, if you've got a home page that has tons and tons and tons of content because you think that, hey, if people don't want this offer, I'm going to give them this. And if they don't want this, I'm going to give them this. You just want to keep giving them stuff. Well, if you look at a heat map and you go, oh, well, 90% of people aren't scrolling down at all, maybe I should get rid of that content down there. And if you've got, if you look at your click maps and you're seeing where people are clicking on your page and a ton of people are clicking on your menu, that's never good. Like I tell my clients, a menu on a website should be a means of last resort. It should be like, I can't find what I'm looking for, therefore I have to do all the hard work and find it in the menu. Yeah. So if lots of people are clicking on your menu, that is usually a good sign that you need to focus on what you're offering on the page because people aren't finding it. If a ton of people are clicking on an image, but nothing happens when you click on that image, you might want to make that image clickable. You might want to have that image take people somewhere because they're obviously expecting something to happen when they click on that. So those are great tools. Like I said, analytics, heat mapping, great for both people who have problems and opportunities.
That's awesome. And I mean, I think people really need to start having a look at that because otherwise you're just having a website for the sake of having a website and you don't know, what results you're getting. And if you can't measure it, you can't manage it and you can't improve, which, ideally you just hire an expert like you. So that's what I want to jump into. What is it that you do now? What keeps you busy day to day? And talk to us a bit about your business.
Yeah, so my business is called Disruptive Advertising, and we do 2 things for businesses. We drive paid traffic with Facebook ads and Google ads, and we convert that traffic. So that's obviously my area of expertise and my background is helping businesses convert traffic on websites. And so we're a full service agency, so we basically will manage we will manage and create ad campaigns for businesses to run those ads online. And then we will actually do all for the website side of things to help businesses find out what is going to convert their audience on a website. We do all the design work, we do all the development work, we run and analyze the tests, and then we basically will deliver winning experiences to our clients. So we will come to them and we'll say, we tested these 3 versions of a page. Here's what we learned about the audience. Here's how much we increased conversion rates by. It's super, super fun. And like I said, that's what I get super excited about, is seeing there are no best practices when it comes to the web. There's no such thing as a best practice, because something that works for one business is not going to work for another business. We run these kinds of tests all day long. We've got hundreds of clients right now, and we will run the same test for one business and as the exact same test for another business, completely different results. They may even be in the same industry and different results. So it's totally different. You can't just go find your biggest competitor and copy them, because they've got a slightly different audience than you. They have a different brand than you. They've got different content than you. And so all of that stuff factors together. And so something may be working for them. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. And chances are your biggest competitor probably hasn't tested their website experience. So they probably don't even know what's working for them either.
Yeah. And I mean, the risk when going against your biggest competitor is, if they're big enough, they're potentially doing brand awareness campaigns where they can drop a crap load of money into, brand awareness for a new product, and you're going, well, I'm just trying to advertise my services or my current products. And I mean, you're looking at the world of kind of the Cokes and the McDonald's and things like that, where they just advertise the word Coca-Cola just because they can. And they know that overall it's just keeping in the back of people's minds. But with smaller businesses, it's something that you want to be doing, but it's not necessarily something that you can compete on a level playing field with your biggest competitors on. But with your ads that you're running, are you running from multiple platforms? Is it like you're running Google AdWords and Facebook funnels and things like that, or is it through one in particular?
Yeah, so we're primarily using Facebook ads and Google AdWords for our clients. We also do Instagram ads and LinkedIn ads, but I think the biggest 2 platforms, and the 2 that our clients are seeing the most success on, are Facebook and Google. Facebook primarily because it's such a great advertising platform, because you can target people based on what they like. You can target lookalike audiences that look like, you can create an audience that looks like Coke's audience, people who like the same types of things as Coke, and so the biggest thing that we do, I think, that's different than other businesses is we're not just focused on driving traffic. There's lots of agencies out there that drive traffic. And I mentioned earlier, that used to be my job, was just driving traffic. We're focused on driving traffic that converts. And so a lot of times we'll start working with businesses that have been advertising for a long time. And sometimes we're actually reducing their budgets when we first start working with them, because we go on and we go, hey, 60% of your ads aren't converting any visitors. So we're going to turn off all the ones that aren't converting people, and we're going to focus all of your budget on the ones that are. And so I think we've audited over 1,000 ad campaigns, and I think the average statistic is something like 72% of online ads never convert a single visitor. And so that's just astounding, and that tells you that 72% of budgets that people are spending online are completely wasted. So that's our focus, is getting people to your site that's going to convert.
It's unbelievable, eh? It's like, the cost per conversion looks so much higher when you're running 3/4 of your ads to nobody.
Exactly.
And and it's like, okay, well, we decreased your spend by 72% and we increased your conversions per your cost per conversion. Every single business owner is going to go, happy days. We're on the right track. And I guess, I mean, the cool thing for people out there, like when Chris was saying that you can be, Facebook ads is like being proactive, and Google AdWords is kind of being reactive to a degree. Like, a person has to search a particular term in Google to be found. So you have to be, you're reactive to them searching it. Whereas on Facebook, you're putting something in that you go, this person is likely to like this. So it's again, if it's not a heavy search term on Google, it's harder to get in front of people. Whereas it's a lot easier and thing. But they're both super powerful if used well, and if you're not blowing 72% of your budget.
Exactly.
So I just want to round up with a couple of last questions for you. I mean, there's been so much about it's kind of drinking out of a fire hose for a lot of people out there, I imagine. With your business, 2 years time, if we had a crystal ball, what are you doing with it, and what's happening?
Yeah, so there's a couple things, and I think that's a great question. We've kind of set ourselves up right now. We've built our business in a way that I think we've kind of laid the foundation for tremendous growth. So I spent probably the first year over here at Disruptive just training my team. We literally didn't grow at all for the first 6 months, which was really hard. For me and my wife, we're looking at the financials and going, like nothing's happening, but it wasn't the right time to start growing. We weren't focused on growth because we wanted to make sure that we were offering expert level services to every single client. And so we spent, the first year just laying that groundwork, training up our team, making sure that we've got killer people over here that I feel comfortable handing off clients to. And so at this point, my biggest focus is going out and spreading the word. I'm out speaking at a bunch of conferences. Last month, I was at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego, which was a blast. And last week, I spoke at Hero Conf in Los Angeles. So I'm going out speaking at conferences, and I just imagine doing a lot more of that, and really in an effort to educate people about why this is so important. You and I have been talking a lot about how most business owners, this is going to be news to them, because it's a new industry. I mean, the web is a new marketplace, and there are so many new technologies, so many new ways of reaching your customers, of marketing to your customers, that most businesses, frankly, are just trying to get caught up. And so I feel like one of my primary roles over here is to go out and evangelize this, tell people why they should be doing it, tell people how they can get started doing it, and really spread the word. And so, I think 2 years from now, I'm going to be doing a lot more of that. My team is likely going to be, we're on a growth trajectory right now, to probably grow about 50% this year and another 50% next year. So I imagine our company will be twice the size next year. We're about 60 employees right now, so we'll be around 120, 130 employees 2 years from now.
Locally based or all around the world?
We are based primarily in Utah. We've got a few employees, satellite employees. We've got a satellite office off in California, and then the rest of us are here in Utah. So beautiful cold weather.
I'm sitting here in Brisbane, and it's coming into winter, and I think it's going to be 26 degrees Celsius. So whatever that is, it's warm. So final question: what book or resources had a big influence on you, that you think would be beneficial to other young entrepreneurs out there, and kind of why?
Yeah, so I still think to this day one of the best books I've ever read is The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
I got to interrupt you there. I've done 3 interviews this morning, and it's 3 from 3 for Tim Ferriss. I just laugh. I'm a groupie. I'm an evangelist. So, but carry on. What did you get out of it, and why?
Yeah, I'm a Tim Ferriss groupie as well. And here's the thing that I got out of it. It wasn't because I didn't even read that book until I had already started my company. Yeah. There's a couple things that I really liked that he focuses on in that book. And it's not about how to work 4 hours in a week. It's about the first thing that I love that he talks about in that book is the idea of lifestyle design. And it's really about figuring out what do you actually want out of life. So when I first started my business, I met with a mentor of mine, and he asked me a couple of fairly basic questions. He's like, why do you want to start a company? And I was like, well, I want to be my own boss and I want to make a crap ton of money, and he's like, neither of those are good reasons to start a business.
Yeah.
If you start a business wanting to be your own boss and wanting to make a ton of money, you will fail because one of two things will happen. number one, you won't like being your own boss because you're not going to be as productive as you thought you were. Or you'll start making decent money and you'll suddenly find yourself no longer motivated to continue working hard. So the thing I love in the 4-Hour Workweek is he talks about setting goals for how you want to develop yourself as a person. What are things that you want to learn? What are skills you want to develop outside of work? You know, he mentions like ballroom dancing, and he mentions martial arts, and he mentions a lot of, you know, learning other languages, and you know, all these kinds of things that people don't typically start doing while they're working. And so I love that he talks about setting those goals for yourself and starting to do them now, wherever you are in your life. And so that was really life-changing for me. And then the second thing, and this isn't necessarily about in the 4-Hour Workweek, but just from Tim Ferriss in general, you know, he talks a lot about managing your own schedule, how to most effectively manage your time. One thing that he mentions in the book, you know, is reducing the amount of time you spend in email.
Yeah.
I think he claims that he has it down to like 1 hour a week that he spends responding to emails, which I think is probably a bunch of BS, or at least he doesn't do that permanently. But I do like the idea of effectively planning your time so that you're not being reactive constantly. I think, you know, at one point when I started my business was checking my email like once every half hour, you know, because I was like, what if a big client emailed me? What if I need to respond to something? What if something's urgent? And the truth is, you know, there are very few truly urgent things that you need to get to right now. And so, you know, shifting out of that reactive mindset and into productive mode, spending your time doing things that, you know, that Stephen Covey would say are important but not urgent.
Yep.
Those are some of the most effective uses of my time as an entrepreneur and of anybody's time. So that's a big thing that he talks about a lot in that book, and that I think has had a big impact on me as an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, I think we could both go for days on that book. It's pretty influential to a lot of people, particularly the younger generation. I think Rich Dad Poor Dad's kind of the generation above us who are like, oh yeah, it showed us that we can get financially free or whatever you want to term that, and everyone else is like, well, we're in the digital age, man. Like, people can make $100,000 in a day if they know what they're doing. So making the money isn't necessarily the worry nowadays. It's, what do you do once you've got it, and how can you optimize your life? So we'll link all of that in the show notes at passiveincomeyoung.com. Chris, I just want to welcome you to the Youngpreneurs family. I know that you have, I can without a doubt say that you are the most successful person out of your friends, unless one of them has a better moustache than you. I'm not even talking business wise, but if people want to find out more about you and what you do, where can they go? What can they do?
Yeah, so people are welcome to look me up online. I would love to hear any questions that people have. If they want to tweet at me, I'm on Twitter at Chris Dayley. My last name is Dayley. And we also have, if people are interested in starting to test on their own websites, we've got a free starter guide that people can download on our website. If they go to disruptiveadvertising.com/guide. There's some really great stuff in there, all the tools that you'll need to use, some recommended strategies, and just tips for getting started. So I would love for people to check that out and definitely reach out with any questions.
Awesome. Well, we'll link all of that in the show notes. Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to watching the progress of your business over the next couple of years, and hopefully keeping in touch and touching base in person one day.
Likewise, it was a pleasure and I appreciate you welcoming me into the Youngpreneurs family.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening to the Youngpreneurs podcast. This was proudly brought to you by the Podcast Institute, the #1 training resource to take your business from chasing leads to leads chasing you, and from an absolute amateur to a full-blown authority. If you're looking to take your business to the next level, then a podcast is the obvious answer. You can get national and global exposure in a very fast time, and it's just exactly what I've done with this podcast. So if you want to find out more, get a checklist on how you can get started for under $60, and to find out more through a small training video that I've prepared for you all, then please check out passiveincomeyoung.com/podcast training.